Doctor.
Hello, how are you?
All well. It's a pleasure meeting you again in your sessions.
The pleasure is all mine, actually. Let me just...
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Ahla wa sahla, Akh Eid. So let's do a quick introduction by the time we have the others join us. I think most of the people know me from this channel. We used to run all the time advisors webinars, and sometimes we did that in collaboration with Gulf Downstream Association, whom we are partners of. So welcome everybody. I welcome every participant who decided to join us and hopefully benefit. We are happy you are here with us today. So I'm gonna introduce myself very quickly. I'm Dr. Saadi Adra. I run advisors. We have an office in Egypt, another one under establishment in Saudi, and we have a corporate, and we operate in many countries in the field of consulting, training, education, and outsourcing as well. We are very happy and proud to be associate members of Gulf Downstream Association. Then I'd like also to introduce Iman Daibel, okay, joining us from Bahrain. Iman is a friend of ours. She's one of the good professionals we are proud of in our region. Iman is a strategy implementation professional, and she's also a portfolio management professional, plus other credentials. So if you'd like to welcome the audience and tell us a bit about you quickly.
Sure, Doctor. Thank you so much. So basically, good evening, everyone. My name is Iman Dabel. It's not the Abel. Okay, so basically, I'm leading the Transformation Management Office at BBK. It's one of the largest banks in Bahrain. I'm handling the strategy formulation and execution, as well as the performance management. Basically, we are developing the portfolio of projects. We are monitoring all the strategic projects there. I am also a freelance trainer, so I do train in portfolio and strategy as well. Yeah, this is me in a nutshell.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Antonio.
Hello.
How are you?
Hi, Sally. Sorry, I've been a bit crazy busy. It's been very busy. I was with the founder of Airbnb.
Okay.
So a lot of stuff going on. But anyway, I'm happy to be here.
Okay, you're welcome. We were
nice
just
to see you all.
welcoming Iman, and now I'm welcoming Eid. Eid is from Saudi Arabia. He works at the Ministry of Municipalities and now Housing as well. Okay. And
to meet you and good to see you.
Thank you.
Eid, welcome. If you like to introduce yourself quickly to our audience, please.
Thank you for offering this.
Eid is also portfolio management professional, okay, which is our topic today.
Thank you. Eid al-Bugami. I have professional certification in project management, balance scorecard, portfolio management, and in the academic side, I have a bachelor degree in computer engineering, executive MBA, as well as currently preparing my DBA in business administration. I have almost 15 years of experience, mostly in projects and program management, and currently in the Ministry of Municipalities and Housing, working in the Vision Realization Office, as you know, overseeing the ministry's strategic and initiatives under the Vision 2030.
Okay, you're welcome. I see here one of the participants, Professor Hiroshi Tanaka. I would like to especially welcome him. Dr. Tanaka was one of my reviewers for my PhD thesis, and he's an international authority, very well known across the world. So welcome. We are humbled by your presence, Dr. Tanaka. Thank you, Eid, very much. I'm happy you joined us. I know the Ministry of Municipality and Housing has one of the most challenging visions and initiatives in the kingdom, and they keep you working 16 hours per day. So thank you for being with us. And also, I'd like to thank you to welcome my friend and partner Antonio Nieto Rodriguez, who's very well known. He's our world champion in project management, and he's the author of the latest Harvard Business Review project management handbook. So welcome, Imad. Plus many more. If I'm gonna welcome Antonio, is gonna speak about. Antonio is gonna take us all night. So welcome, Antonio. And I'd like to welcome Imad Mhaisin. Imad is the director in Jazan at Aramco, but he's also the chairman of the Gulf Downstream Association Project Management Committee, which I'm a member of. So Imad, in this perspective, you are my boss here. Welcome, and thank you for hosting us, all of us collaboration together for this episode 21. Before we start our moderation and our discussion, Imad has an opening, if you like, words to say to us. So please.
السلام عليكم. شكرا أخي العزيز دكتور سعدي. First, I would like to say good day to all ladies and gentlemen. Our pleasure. We are happy also today to host the conversation episode titled "What is the relation between portfolio management and the strategy implementation?" And this is one of the series that the Gulf Downstream Association, the GDA, has been holding in the last few years. The GDA is a non-profit organization that was founded by 5 founding members: Saudi Aramco, Kuwait National Petroleum Company KNPC, Kuwait Petroleum International KPI, Bahrain Petroleum Company Babco, and ADNOC. And currently, the GDA has more than 60 organizations and enterprises part of the GDA. Thank you very much, Dr. Saidi. I am the chairman of the Project Management Technical Committee, where the GDA has another 9 technical committees. I have no doubt today that we'll enjoy this great conversation between excellent and exceptional speakers, and I hope that we will gain and add value in this conversation. Without further ado, Dr. Saadi, I would like to leave the floor to you for this, to moderate this session, and I wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you very much, Imad. Also, my dear friend. Nice thing about working together in GDA. It's really, you don't feel it is a family. It is a family. So our brothers and sisters there, and we collaborate and had lots of interesting projects and initiatives. And we ran several videos, by the way, while people were waiting. But I'm sure our friend and director Raj will at the end he will do a closing session, and we'll discuss some of these as well. So, would you like us to start? Okay. Now, before we start this session, we're gonna talk about the relationship between portfolio management and strategy implementation. And like usual, we like to start with a couple of polls. So I'm gonna start the first poll just in a second. Okay. And in the first poll, actually, you can see it. If you are using a phone, you have, I think, to flip a page or something. Mustafa can help you in the chat in that. And you need to, you don't write 1, 2, 3, or 4. You have to select. So, do we need portfolio management? This is the poll, and there are 4 answers. it's a new topic. Organizations have been doing success without it before. We don't need portfolio management. This is the first choice. The second one, portfolio management can be substituted by traditional strategic planning. Okay. And this is something interesting. Perhaps, Saeed, we're gonna have you talk a little bit with us on this aspect, because you also are accredited for KPIs. And portfolio management is critical for the success of projects, no more. And the last answer is portfolio management is key for the proper realization of strategy through proper alignment, selection, governance, support, monitoring of organizational resources, investments, and initiatives. And it seems that so far we have most of the people are selecting the last one, but let's give them like 10 more seconds before we move on. Okay. And we're gonna, in our discussion, perhaps refer to these results and discuss them. So I'm gonna finish in 3, 2, 1, and I'm ending the poll. So 92% the last answer, and we have 5% amongst the first three. And before we start the challenge or the question, we're gonna have today 4 questions for us to discuss. So it's gonna be 4 rounds. In each round, each panelist will have 2 to 3 minutes to say her or his ideas or perspectives, and then we move on. Now, I would like to highlight, let me just make our pictures smaller, just for the sake of this slide. According to the portfolio management standard, the portfolio life cycle has 4 phases: initiation, planning, execution, and optimization. And it covers 6 domains: portfolio strategic management, portfolio governance, portfolio capacity and capability management, portfolio stakeholder engagement, portfolio value management, and portfolio risk management. And this is just food for thought, okay, for us to enhance our discussion. And of course, there is a certification called Portfolio Management Professional, and you can apply to this through PMI, and you can get this covers 6 domains. Good evening, Raj, and welcome with us. Okay, so our challenge, which we will discuss today. Number 1, can organizations exist, sustain, and flourish without portfolio management? So, whom do you think I should go with first? Ladies first. Iman, you are the winner. So we start.
That's why you're having me today, huh? So basically, to answer this question, can organization exist, sustain, and flourish without portfolio management? I would say it depends. It depends on the nature of the organization. It depends on the maturity of the organization, its appetite to change, its appetite to transform, its appetite to manage their portfolio properly. So it depends mainly. It depends. It can actually flourish without even portfolio management. It can flourish without strategy management office. It can flourish without PMO. It depends on the way the management is handling their projects and it's handling their strategy and aligning.
Can I stop you just a bit? Sure. Can we all mute our mic and put it on, turn it on when we speak, so that we don't have this echo? Thank you. Please, Iman, continue.
So some organizations' sizes, for instance, it doesn't really require a portfolio management office or a PMO or a strategy management office. It's a small organization, it's a projectized type of organization, and they are managing their portfolio in a proper manner. They are aligning it to the overall strategy, and they have a very, very nice strategy that it is adaptive to the changes in the market. It's conditional. It's, it's adapting all the market conditions. It's and it's flourishing. So it really depends. We can't really have, a yes or no. And this particular question, I believe it depends on the organization and the management and how it handles the project's portfolio and strategy.
So your perspective is that this is highly situational, depending on the type of the organization, maybe the type of industry, what they are doing. And what I've seen all over is that irrespective of the term, it's the functions that are important. So if we dissect portfolio into these 6 domains, and we discover that we are doing governance, and we are doing strategic alignment, and we're doing capacity planning, and we're doing stakeholder engagement and management of value. Okay, in this sense, in this perspective, if we're doing everything that that is included within portfolio, even if we don't call it portfolio, then we're doing things that are right and that match the international standard. So it's a little bit more about doing what we should be doing right for our type of challenge and industry and objectives, rather than the name itself. Okay, thank you. So Eid, can you enlighten us, please, with your perspective on this first challenge?
Actually, you covered most of what I was planning to say. The only thing that I can add is that, and I can support you in this, is the function more than what exactly the name of the methodology that we are using. If an organization can be successful without any methodology, maybe only lucky organizations and very, very lucky organizations. And I can question if they prove that they have been successful in doing the business. I can question at least their efficiency in doing or achieving their targets. So as long as that the role is there, we can consider that they are successful in managing and governing their initiatives, and having at least the consistency among their internal units in delivering their mission.
Okay, thank you. So you're talking about standardization and consistency, because especially you work in a huge ministry, huge organization with lots of subsidiaries, which means you don't have one project to manage. You have hundreds, maybe thousands of initiatives, programs, and projects, number one. Two, they are very much dispatched in various locations, okay? So even if you have a level of centralization, you do need some decentralization to manage all these. And for thousands of people to operate properly across the whole kingdom, it cannot happen by luck alone. It has to be through a system, through some sort of standards and unification. Hence the governance aspect, which is key to success. So if we have this, if we have a proper governance on how our project managers are going to manage our projects, even if we don't call it portfolio, then we have some of the ingredients of success, as I understand from you. Okay. Now, Antonio, let me tell you a secret about Antonio. Antonio, when he was back the chairman at PMI, okay, he was one of the first people who started to introduce the concept of project management, not to project managers, but to CEOs and to organizations. Hence, portfolio management, because you see, one thing that whenever I speak about portfolio, I like to make it very clear in a simple manner. Projects are temporary. Programs, though long-term strategic, but also they are temporary. But for portfolio is something permanent, okay? So there is a difference, which means portfolio is more organizational than tactical, or than it's more strategic. It's a function within the organization, not at the level of the contractor or outside. And Antonio started to spread. I'm not gonna speak more. Antonio, please tell us more about this and about the topic of portfolios.
Sure, Sadi, and I think you were going to say what I was going to say, so that's very good. I agree with the comments. I think when you see today the number of projects that companies have, based on a research for HBR that I did, has doubled the amount of projects that organizations are doing. So it's important that they have a solid portfolio management practice that is kind of the referee in the organization on which projects to invest. Do we have capacity? I think that's one of the most fundamental questions I've been asked. Before 5 years ago, project managers were calling me, listen, Antonio, I have a problem with this project. Then PMOs were calling, listen, I don't know how to. Today, CEOs are calling me, saying, Antonio, I don't know how many projects we have. Or Antonio, we have 1,200 strategic initiatives. How do I manage that? Right? So I think a big role for today for the portfolio manager is being the referee, being the person who, or the group who really prioritize initiatives, makes the tough decisions about how much can we invest, where do we allocate the resources. So that one is key one. It's in the agenda of every CEO today, just because of the project economy and all these things, and the fast changing and all the digital. And the second big area, which I think it's important, is simplification. I think portfolio management, I've done that for 10, 15 years. It can lead to bureaucracy. And the last thing that we want in project management world is that we're seen as bureaucracy. I think it's all about adding value. How do we add value? It's by being simple so that everybody can understand, and that by bringing value, right? Engaging stakeholders, delivering the strategy of the organization, the transformation, the digital transformation. And that's where I think we need to focus. We need all the rest. We need process. But that's not what we need to show to the people. Your stakeholders, they want to see the value, how you make your life easier, how you help them prioritize in their day-to-day jobs. If they have 5 projects, where do they put the time, right? So I think we're moving into more tangible thing. The basis is really the standards, but what people need is much more intangible.
Very interesting. So to wrap things up around this point, maybe I can conclude from all what you have said is that if we have a really large organization and focus should be on value, on sustainability, on benefits. And in this perspective, when the amount of initiatives, projects, programs, whatever, even operations are really large, then we might have a problem in terms of resourcing. And for us to be able to identify where to put the best resources, we need a mechanism, a clear mechanism that we all agree upon to prioritize our initiatives, our programs and projects, and put the top resources for the most strategic, most important projects. So it reminds me in marketing about something they call the rule of sacrifice. Because I would like to refer, Antonio, also to your focus book, the old one, okay, which you started from, very important, that if you do everything as high priority, you're not going to succeed in anything. So portfolio has a great and tested mechanism to solve specifically this aspect. Anything else you'd like to speak about this point before we move to the second point on strategy implementation? Anyone? Okay, we are good. So great, let's move on. By the way, for the questions by our audience, please write them down, and Mustafa is helping me. He will be collecting them, and at the end, we're gonna have around 30 minutes for Q&As, and you can ask any question to any of us, and we'll happily answer it. So to move to the second challenge, I'll just turn on again the... okay, now we have the second poll. So the second poll, let me turn on the second poll. Okay. Now here, do we need strategy implementation? And listen, my question is not about do we need a strategy. No, nobody asks that, because the answer is 100%. Yes, we need a strategy. But do we need strategy implementation framework, strategy implementation roadmap, strategy implementation plan, okay, to actually realize this strategy? And here we have 4 answers that Strategy implementation, a perspective can say it's already covered by balanced scorecards and widely spread KPIs. Another perspective is strategy implementation is the same as strategic planning. So it's enough, don't complicate and get us too many buzzwords, Antonio. And number 3, strategy implementation is already taken care of by the operation people. So why should we worry about it? And the last one, strategy implementation, is not the same thing as planning and requires a separate plan, execution, controls by both operations and project management. So let's give around 20 more seconds for people to interact and decide what they would like to answer. And we see again over 80% in the last one and almost 10% the first one. Okay. Now, panelists are not allowed to answer, so because you can say whatever you want when we discuss in a bit. So I'm gonna finish in 3, 2, 1, and we'll end the poll. So 87% now say that strategy implementation not the same, the last answer, and we have a little bit who speak that strategy implementation already covered via balanced scorecards and KPIs. So before we move on to our challenge, I like to share also a slide about the strategy implementation roadmap, which was devised by Antonio and his partner Robin Speculon when they established the Strategy Implementation Institute. And it speaks about several aspects. It speaks about 7 modules: leadership excellence, financial value, business model, stakeholder management, culture evolution, employee engagement, and tracking performance. And perhaps when we start the discussion, Antonio might enlighten us, or maybe Iman, because you are both SIP. Why do you need employee engagement since you already have stakeholder management? Okay, seems like almost the same thing if they are. And of course, there is a certification. This time, this is by APMG International, based in UK, which is the Strategy Implementation Institute. And now to our challenge. Can organizations exist, sustain, and flourish without strategy implementation? And I'm gonna go first. This time, Eid, please. Okay.
To be honest, I don't think that they can flourish because the strategy implementation, if we think about, let's go back, talk about strategy first before we go into the implementation methodologies and mechanisms. Strategies usually are dreams, nothing tangible. Once they are set and people will realizes what are the gaps in their current business, what is their future in terms of the development that they need, and they put it on paper and they sign for it, they still need a proper mechanism or a structured way of delivering this dream into tangible things, or that will create value to the business. Here, where the strategy implementation kicks in, and we can cover later the involvement of portfolio management. But as we are talking about the strategy implementation, we need a proper, let's say, delivery or execution to this strategy. And to define the phases, I will use, if Antonio will allow me, buzzwords, but this will make it clear how we are going to deliver strategies. First, the strategy development, and then strategy execution, and then strategy implementation. Strategy development is, as I said, setting the direction, putting what are the plans, what are the targets, and then strategy execution. If we take an example, as a company wants to expand and and get a greater market share, for example, in Saudi Arabia. And this involves building a factory here. And the factory takes 2 years. During these 2 years, as they are executing their strategy, they are not yet tackling their strategy, which is the market share and the new business that they are developing. They are still, their work is internal. So once they are done with the strategy execution, which has nothing yet to do with the strategy implementation, they will be ready to implement their strategy and see what they can achieve or what they can deliver. They can use Balance Scorecard as one of the tools to tell them how they are performing, what is the health of their strategy. But the big umbrella should be strategy implementation, and I believe it's critical if they are they want more governed structure of translating this strategy into real business or real value.
Okay, interesting point. So you differentiate between strategy crafting and strategy implementation. Of course, they are not the same thing. But before I move on to Iman, I keep Antonio till the last. Okay. Well, we crafted a certain strategy and we started to implement, and we found that maybe we were daydreaming. Maybe it was crafted in La La Land. Okay, maybe the the advisor or the company we brought in and paid a leg and arm gave us something benchmarked against something much larger than our need or maybe our capability. What do we do in terms of we keep on implementing the strategy, or we go back?
It is very critical that the stakeholders or those who are owning this strategy understand the business uncertainty. They will never build a strategy on concrete facts or numbers. There must be many assumptions, and these assumptions might change when they start delivering this strategy. If we talk about a strategy that Tesla will implement, definitely the market will react. So the reaction from the market will change the assumptions that the company has made when they are building and developing the strategy. If they don't have a proper feedback mechanism to get these changes, analyze them, and assess in a very well manner the impact and the strategy and what they should change, the strategy definitely will fail. Most of the strategies fail because of the wrong implementation.
Okay.
And the wrong implementation, one of the factors is that the absence of the real data that coming from the market or the changes that they need to consider.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna move on to Iman, but it reminds me about Vision 2030. So Vision 2030, when it was crafted, it was very ambitious, and some people were, is it doable? But the way from point A to point B is not a straight line most of the time. Okay, it's like a zigzag. So as they moved on, they started to alter, and as they started to learn things, they started to enhance the planning and enhance the execution. And now look where we are, in a very successful position. And the facts that tell us that is the very interesting move up for multiple international KPIs for the kingdom, which tell us that yes, it's important to start even if you don't know everything, because you said a very important word, which is uncertainty, and nobody knows everything. We don't know everything. God knows everything. Okay, we start with what we know, and then we learn and we adapt as we move on. Thank you. So Iman, what do you have, please, to add your perspective in this sense, especially you know the framework. So maybe you tell us your point of view and tell us why you do have stakeholder different than employee engagement?
Yeah. Let me start with your quote when you by quoting you when you said actually we are not arguing here whether we need strategies or not. We all need strategies. Even individuals, they need strategies for themselves to to grow and to plan their future. So we are not arguing whether we need a strategy or not. We need a strategy. As an organization, we need a strategy, and the strategy should not be set in stone. It should be adaptive. It should be agile. It should respond to market conditions and market changes, because we are responding to uncertainty as well, as clarified by earlier. So how do I define the strategy implementation, first of all? Because the question was around, do organizations flourish without strategy implementation? Well, it depends on the definition of strategy implementation. For me, the way I define it, strategy implementation is equal to strategy design, which is the formulation of the strategy or the crafting of strategy, plus strategy execution, and this can be executed by the projects, which are the vehicle for the strategy execution, and then plus strategy monitoring and controlling. And here we are speaking mainly about the KPIs and the monitoring of the KPIs, the balance scorecard, how we are monitoring the performance, how we are responding to market conditions and changes along the way. So strategy implementation equals strategy design plus execution plus monitoring. The beauty about having the portfolio management alongside the strategy implementation, alongside the balance scorecard knowledge, is that you can mix them all together and you can provide a very, very stringent framework, a coherent framework for you to manage your strategy and for implementing your strategy going forward. I believe it's a beautiful combination of certifications and of knowledge, of course, regardless of the certifications. Now, back to your question, why do we have stakeholders management and we do have employee engagement? Because they are two different things. Okay, employee engagement could come under stakeholders management, yes, I admit. However, stakeholders management is more wider. Employee engagement is for your employees in particular, because you need to engage them along the way, and you need to make them part of the strategy implementation. Now, earlier in the early days, we encountered a problem. Strategy is for the top only, and no one is aware of the strategy. It's confidential document, no one is aware of it, and everyone is executing it, but they are not aware. Now, with the balance scorecard, for instance, you are tearing down your strategy. You are cascading your strategy further, and everyone will know about it, apparently. Because you have the tier 1 objectives, which are the corporate objectives, and then you have the tier 2 objectives, departmental objectives, and then you have the individual objectives as tier 3 perspective. They are aligned. They know that they are contributing towards your strategy. They are adding value to your strategy. They can even calculate the monetary value that they are contributing with. That's why you need employee engagement. You need to engage them along the way. You need to make them part of your strategy. While, of course, the stakeholders management, for instance, here we are speaking mainly about the communication part. We are speaking about the different stakeholders that are involved in our strategy, including external and internal stakeholders, people who are relevant to our strategy and who might impact our strategy and who might be impacted by our strategy. So we need to consider those stakeholders as well, including our competitors, let's say. Our rivals in the market, we need to consider what they need, what they are producing, how we are responding to whatever they are producing, how we are, crafting our strategy or amending our strategy in order for us to cater for the changes that they are handling. So this is the part of the stakeholders management. I hope that clarifies, but Antonio can correct me on this, of course.
I'm not gonna say any comment now, because you started to answer the third question, which is the integration between both, Iman, and I cannot agree less. So I pass the flag to Antonio.
I think, Iman, you did a great job, so I will not repeat that, but it's really, really great to see how much you understand strategy and all the elements. So perfect. I think when we set up the strategy implementation roadmap, and so we were aware of the balance scorecard, and the balance scorecard is great, but it mostly addresses the operational part of a business, right? It didn't cover the project side, and that's what we felt that was missing. So I think for me, the strategy implementation roadmap provides all the elements that we need to consider on top of portfolio management, as you can see in the roadmap, we don't really talk about portfolio, but we talk about elements that matter to be successful in strategy, like tracking performance, like business model, like culture, things that usually you don't see in some of these more practical standards like the portfolio management standard, right? And for me, strategy implementation is what you've said, both of you, there is an important element. The short-term part of any organization is the operations. So we need that. To deliver your strategy, you need to consider your operations. So the challenge is we need to do the operations right, which is usually the KPIs and the short-term, the quarterly, the yearly. So those people are part of the strategy too. It's not just the projects and the transformation. That's the midterm and the long term. So as strategy and implementation professionals, we need to understand how we can incentivize, control, monitor the operations, plus the change, which is the projects, the programs, the portfolios, the transformation, the new technologies. And that's what makes it really challenging. And but I agree with what was said about setting the strategy, crafting the strategy is also fundamental. Today we talk a lot about agility, right? So having agile strategies where you can iterate and continuous adjust if needed, it's an important element that we also need to consider when we talk about implementation.
So in total, the strategy implementation roadmap came to sort of have more inclusion. It has the leaders, and the leadership, they have to do in many cases things they are not doing today. Like, I know Antonio always asks this question for these CEOs: how many hours in a month do you spend on implementing this strategy? It's a critical question, and many of them don't like to answer it. But these questions that make us feel bad, usually they contain the key to transformation if we actually address them. So it was highlighted in the standard and in the various components that leaders have to live by this strategy, be role models. They have to work on it, to spend time on it, to do more communication with all types of stakeholders from one side, but employees or the staff, let's say, from middle managers and even below, these are the people, if their activities were not aligned to realizing the strategy at the operational side, day in, day out, it will never happen. It will just be high-level objectives that we wish to achieve. I'm going to move the discussion to more on the relationship of projects and operations in the next challenge, to see how we can benefit and start to compare between a strategy implementation framework and portfolio management domains, whether we need both, we need one, or something else. Any idea you'd like to also add before we move to the next one? Okay, are you happy? Fine, okay. This I learned from Professor Rodney Turner. Okay, each time he wants to end something, he says, "Are you happy?" And people cannot say we are not happy, so he can end it happily. So the third poll now. So poll number 3. Okay. Here we have 5 choices. Number 1. By the way, keep the questions flowing in, and Mustafa will move them to the Q&A. And once we finish, we're going to start to answer them from the first question by Professor Hiro. Now, I also noticed Ali Benhar, who's one of our speakers on the June 15, going to talk about it. So welcome, Ali. Portfolio management and strategy implementation. Number 1, they are the same. 2, they are totally different. 3, they are complementary. 4, portfolio does projects and strategy does operation. Let's not step on each other's feet, Antonio. And number 5 is both portfolio management and strategy implementation work on projects and operations to realize organizational strategy. And we see some answers coming by, so let's give it like 20 more seconds for everybody to be able to answer. So 5 more seconds. Okay, more answers coming in, as I see. And I'm gonna end it now. 3, 2, 1. Okay. So 77% says that they both work on projects and operations to realize. And the second answer is that they are complementary, 12%, and then the rest on the others. Well, to me, these two answers are right. They are complementary, I believe. Okay, but let's do the discussion and see your point of views on that. But before we do the discussion, I would love to share something that I did in preparation for our session today. So what I did, I took the strategy implementation framework modules, put them up, and I put on the side the portfolio management domains, and I tried to see each one of these modules and domains. Do they do the same thing? Do they intersect? And when I saw that they do almost the same thing, I gave it green, maybe dark green or lighter green. If, for example, this is something totally mentioned like culture evolution, for example, okay, mostly focused in the strategy implementation, it's not addressed in the standard. Now, when we say not addressed in standard, this does not mean that the standard is not capable of doing it. Okay, I was just trying to look a match between the domains and the modules. Maybe I'm wrong because this is a perspective. Maybe something which is yellow could be green or red, but this is a perspective just to help us compare these things together. So whenever there is red, this means it's covered almost only by the other module. Now, I can share this with you, Antonio, Iman, and later on for you to criticize it. I know this is the first time I show it. Okay, I'm not gonna suggest you include it in version 2 now of the body of knowledge, just to ignite our thinking again. And our challenge: how do we integrate operations and projects in order to realize organizational value? We came to the value thing now. Okay, so how do we integrate operations and projects? So let me start on this challenge to realize the value. This time, let me start with you, Antonio, if you can allow me, please.
What's the question, Sadi? I like what you've done there. I like that the answer of the participants, you were spot on. I think they're both complementary. It's not one or the other. I think this is, the audience, the 129 participants, you're really very good in understanding the difference. And I like what you presented, Sadi. I think it's something that I had not thought about, but seeing the gaps, the complementarity. For me, there's a natural evolution from portfolio management to strategy implementation. It's a bit of a career path, right? It's I've been project manager, program manager, PMO director, portfolio manager, and then I've seen how strategy implementation allows me to have that bigger picture. But all the things that I'm building from project management, from program, from portfolio are very useful. But I need to switch as a strategy to understand better the business, the KPIs, the targets. How can we make them? And how do we combine projects, programs, strategic initiatives together, right? So I think it's a nice comparison, Sadi, and I think that the audience is really smart.
Okay. Thank you, Antonio. So with respect to operations and projects, okay, how do we work with these two in terms of strategy and portfolio management? Are they enemies, projects and operations? You know, my experience, I started as a project manager, but I also did a lot of sales work, business development. Hence, after over 20 years, when I did my PhD, I did it investigating the relationship between business development and project management, between something which is operational 100%, something which is tactical or which is temporary, which is the projects. And when it comes to realizing the strategy, who are the people required to realize the strategy, the operations or the projects? Because Iman, in a bit before, she said, we realize the projects through, realize the strategy through projects. Okay, I think this is part of the answer. So what do you think, Antonio, before I move to Iman?
I think I see the point of Iman about projects are the strategy. And one of the most brilliant small quotes that I received was from the chief editor of Harvard Business Review. He said, Antonio, your projects are your future. And I think that's the future of organizations are the projects. The better you manage, the better you select, the better you implement your strategy. But this is mostly midterm, long-term, right? We still need to survive in the short term. And that's where I think you need to have that focus more on the operational part. And that's what I said. It has to be also part of the scope of responsibilities or reach or the activities that we perform. We cannot keep an eye. Remember, some organizations still have 60-70% of the people working in operations. So you cannot just ignore that. For me, everybody working in a company is part of the implementation, everyone, regardless of what we do. And that's, I think, what makes successful company. When you see, I was having dinner yesterday with the founder of Airbnb, and he will just basically everybody, even the people who are hosting houses in Airbnb, considers part of the strategy, right? And it's just very operational. It's just renting one room for a night or a house. So yes, I think a great point.
Thank you. So Eid, what do you think, Eid? Since your organization, you have a huge operation and very large initiatives, okay? So you have a plenty of both. Tell us, how do you manage these two together?
I think the strategy and their related initiatives and projects will shape how operation goes, but they will not overlap each other. Yes, you can go, for example, to the HR and look at what you can projectize in their work. For example, if there are talents in the organization or in the ministry that we want to develop, set up a very clear career path for them and very strong development program for them in terms of their technical expertise or their leadership skills and competencies, we can projectize this. That is one way of improving their performance. However, we cannot cover all the operation because it will be inefficient to manage every aspect of operation from a project perspective. It is more waste of resources more than the value that we can generate from that. Structuring it, having deliverables, milestones, you can literally, from a document perspective or an APM perspective, you can develop that in a project charter, but you cannot get the value that will add to the business. And you can have successful projects without success, without benefit, I mean. You can deliver a project on time, within the budget, but no one will use it. No one will benefit from it. So again, the strategy is affected by the operation. It is very critical to set up the right KPIs that measure the operation performance and see whether it is in line with the strategy that we are implementing. And we, based on that, change on the direction that the operation should go if we think that this is not helping us in the strategy. Sometimes we go to some units and sign them on SLAs so that they can abide by the requests or the time that they need to finish their work. It's not an activity within a project, but it is at the same time a time-bounded activity, like what they have in a project, but it's not a project. So having such strong connection between operation and projects is very crucial in the strategy success.
Excellent point. Thank you very much. I'm gonna jump to Iman on this to please tell us your perspective as well.
Sure, Doctor. So let me elaborate on what I said earlier. I said projects are vehicles to deliver strategy, but they are not the only vehicles. There are the KPIs as well, which are part of the operations as well. So the way we are developing this in our bank, for instance, we are taking both the KPIs, the operations, and we are taking also the strategic initiatives. So we are implementing that by leveraging the balanced scorecard, framework as a framework. And then we are cascading that further. So we are integrating all of them all together. The strategy implementation framework, as well as the balanced scorecard framework, as well as the portfolio management framework. We are integrating all these things together. We are making them complementary. We are, speaking. They are speaking to each other, and we are translating that into operations and to projects as well. So we are not limiting ourselves only to projects while delivering the strategy. We are also speaking about the operations, and we are collecting KPIs, and we are monitoring those KPIs, and we are also updating those KPIs if needed. So basically, yes, by all means, strategy is not limited to projects. A strategy is both projects and operations.
Very, very good point. Indeed, actually, in our next session on June 15, we're going to speak about portfolio management and managing benefits, okay, which is like episode 2. It's the continuation of our discussion today, and believe the points raised here will make our job harder in that session, so that we can start from them. Now, the last question, I'm gonna go quicker now so that we try not to exceed the 90 set minutes, although I have a reputation to keep, Antonio. Okay. Yes. So Paul's reset the point. Yeah, let's start with the last poll. Okay. What is more important? Portfolio management, strategy implementation, equally important. Very simple, straightforward question. And I'll give you only 10 seconds so that we move on. Okay. I think Antonio's camera, he's still with us, but his camera is muted. So, portfolio is better, strategy is important, better, they are equally important. Now, when we say equally, it's not just like a balance of the jeweler, not necessarily 50-50 equal, okay? Equal in one sense or the other, meaning both are important, okay? So 5 more seconds.
Thank you.
Okay. And I will end the poll now. So equally important, around 80%, then strategy implementation, and last portfolio. Now the last part of our session, let me also make ourselves smaller. Antonio, can you mute your mic a bit? Thank you, because you are in open space. So if you look at this famous triangle that we have a vision, mission, organization, strategy, and objectives, and Previously, we used to look at portfolio management, program management as a separate management and high-level operation and planning separate. Then portfolio manages programs and projects, and then we have management of ongoing operation. And there in small, there is something interesting, increasing value production capacity on the side of projects, whereas on the side of operation, producing value. Meaning, because projects, they deliver whatever, they share the same organizational resources, more or less. They deliver and they move on, but the operational people, like you build an airport, okay? So you have your KPIs, you produce this very high value, KPIs are high, but if you did not actually equip the people and upskill their skills properly and their competencies to actually manage the airport in a better manner, maybe the actual benefit or value will not be realized. So you have to look at both. We used to look at this, but this has a problem, is that when we at the management level separate the management between projects and portfolios, we make them like competitors, and this causes silos between both with no or little integration, and they start to compete over resources and funds, because for each one, whatever he's doing is the most important thing that should be done. So instead of this, the better framework is that to walk away from a framework that causes silos and lack of integration and competition, is actually to combine the management of both, which we had in the latest standard. And wherever we start actually, as Iman just said in a bit, we combine strategy implementation with the management of portfolio, then we can at that level manage both and decide whatever resource is more important for our operation and whatever is more important for our new initiatives and projects, because finally we cannot live without both. Okay, we need to transform and change, and the vehicle for that are programs and projects, of course, and we need to achieve operational excellence, and this is done by operations only after the benefit from the capabilities produced by projects and programs. Which gets us to the last challenge. I hope Antonio is capable of joining us back. What is the main challenge for organizations to adapt these frameworks, and what can they do to overcome the challenges? So the question is about the main challenges if you want to implement strategy implementation, portfolio management, and other frameworks, and how can we overcome. And I will start with Eid on this last question, then we go directly to our audience questions and answers.
I believe that this is the most important question in our session today. The challenge is not to understand what to do. Many organizations have competent project or program managers or people who are qualified to get the PFMB, but they tend to fail in executing their strategies. What's wrong in their organization? I believe that the organization maturity is the key success factor that determines how successful is the organization. And second, the competency of the people owning this strategy. If, for example, this portfolio manager or the person in charge of the strategy implementation, his competency, his readiness to drive the organization forward. If we can describe portfolio management and strategy implementation, I can put it as an example like a private jet. If you own now, if you get the PFMB or strategy implementation, you own now a private jet. You can fly anywhere in the world, but you cannot take off simply because other challenges around you, some of them weather, some of them the stakeholders. There are no-fly zone. the worst case scenario is that you might come across territories that you will shoot you down. Why? It's not that they are challenging the methodology, but because they question the time or when should we adopt it. Are we ready to adopt it or not? This is very crucial in managing any change in organizations, because once we talk about a project, we talk about something most likely new to the organization, new in terms of what it will bring or what it will change within the organization. So laying down the foundation in terms of the communication, engaging the stakeholder, making sure that the organization adapts or ready to adapt to these changes will make the strategy more probable to succeed. If we come to an organization that is very mature, the structure is clear, we can say that maybe 80, maybe 90% of portfolio managers or the strategy implementation experts will succeed in implementing the strategy. But in other immature industries or organizations, you will find that only maybe 20 to 30% only succeed in their mission. What created this big change or difference in success rate is the readiness or the understanding of what are the let's say the capabilities that we need to change the strategy and engage the key people in the organization to adopt it. Once we think about portfolio management, we cannot look at it in isolation of projects and programs underneath and the capabilities of the project managers. In the ministry, for example, there are project managers that manage projects in the north border. We will never visit this, and there will not be time to visit every project around the kingdom. So we depend on that competent person on reporting the facts, assessing the risks around the projects. So, for example, if a contractor that he becomes aware that he's struggling with a project not within the ministry, with somebody else, and figure out that this is like a domino, it might affect the organization later on, and alert the people around it, and so that we give it more attention, it will be too late to react later on once the project fails. So it is layers of capabilities that they need to build within the organizations so that we can say that this portfolio manager is successful. It is at all layers critical to make or to assign the right people at the first, and to give them the support so that at the strategy level, we can read the relevant information, the accurate information, and we can take the right decisions, and we do not end up with the situations that we have garbage in, garbage out.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Saeed. I have like a very interesting thing to share, but I'd like to take Iman's perspective, then I share it, and we start to take questions from our audience. Iman, your call, please.
I think, just to summarize it, I think our main challenge here is that we are hostages of terminologies. We are hostages also of credentials and certifications. Whatever is there in the market, we want to take it and we want to grab the knowledge. Knowledge is not a problem, but the problem is that if it becomes like, the credential and the certification without having the application into perspective, we don't practice what we are, studying. And this is the main problem. This is the key challenge that we are facing today. We are having a lot of certifications, we are having a lot of frameworks, and we lack to integrate, and we lack to combine all these frameworks, and we lack to put them into perspective when it comes to application. Our problem today is that many organizations are going to big consulting houses to deliver their strategies and to develop their strategies. But in terms of implementation and execution, they fail big time because they didn't formulate it in the first place. Someone else has formulated that for them. So this is one of the key challenges that we are currently encountering in our society and in our, corporate world. Having people with the certifications without having the proper application. A practice is the key going forward, I think. When we practice things, when we put our knowledge into perspective, and when we integrate, when we customize, because frameworks are there to guide us. They are not there to dictate how, the way we work and how we think about things. So basically we customize and then we tailor, and then based on the appetite of the organization and the maturity of the organization, we deliver. This is the key to success in my view.
So to sum up, you both spoke about the maturity of the organization, and you highlighted integration, and Eid spoke a lot about the capabilities of the individual. It's not enough that you take a certification. You need to learn how to actually practically implement it, and you need to learn how to implement it within a specific context in a realistic manner. It's not just that we have to implement everything which is in a book. It's not being fanatic for a certain framework, but rather loyal to whatever serves the objectives of our organization. This should be the focus. And here also I like to highlight an idea that came to my mind because of what Eid was saying. What's like rephrasing what he said is that the hero, who's the hero, the individual or the organization? Well, my friends, as a conclusion, if we are going to talk about portfolio management, if we're going to talk about strategy implementation, later on managing benefits, digital transformation, and so on, the hero can never be the individual. The hero is the organization. So the maturity, when you talk about maturity of the organization, it only happens when we have mature individuals, skilled individuals, when we have a good process, when we have a good way of making decisions, okay? When we have good executive support, engaged executives, good leadership, okay? And plus good tools and a way to govern our work so that it is not like, as we say in Arabic, fawrid kazuz, fawrid kazuz, you open the Pepsi and it gets out. Then after that, nothing. No, we want something sustainable, okay? So it's not about doing a big fuss about one thing. It's about consistency. 1 year after the other, this is how we build maturity. It's about learning from our success and our mistakes. Yes, we borrow ideas from these standards. Yes, we speak and benefit from advisors and consultants, but we have to find out ways to implement our strategies ourselves using our own people and empower the people, upskill their look at their competencies and check if they are enough to realize our strategy today and tomorrow. Now, it has been a pleasure. If you'd like to add anything else before I open the door for our audience. Okay, no. Are you happy? Okay, so let's start. And I'm gonna start from the beginning. Now, Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka, he asked a question. I think that in developing a capital investment portfolio in the downstream oil and gas industry, but by the way, Professor Tanaka used to be for 40 years the CEO for JGC, one of the two largest contractors in the world for the oil and gas sector, and they built many refineries and whatever facilities. Well, welcome back, Antonio. We are just discussing the first question, which was asked by Hiroshi Tanaka. I'm gonna repeat it from the beginning. I think that in developing a capital investment portfolio in the downstream oil and gas industry, balancing projects for oil and gas and those for energy transition is becoming puzzling, because happily the fuel market has recovered tremendously over the past 1 year. What are the current strategic considerations on this challenge in investment portfolio construct, while energy transition should be propelled anyway? Would you like to answer this, Antonio? Antonio, can you hear us? Okay, we wait for your connection to become better. Eid or Iman, would you like to answer this question? Okay, let me give you an idea. Now, of course, oil and gas prices are becoming higher and higher. It's not our topic to speak about oil and gas, but it's our topic to speak about strategy implementation and being adaptive. I believe now the NOCs and the oil and gas companies, they have a surplus. They have now more funds than once they started the year to put their budget, because it's an unforeseen revenue income stream. And hopefully the war will end in Ukraine, but it did not end soon, and things escalate. Oil and gas prices are going to be up and up more, which means in this situation, in this region, they will have more funds, and having more funds means they can invest more. But my proposition, if we're going to think green and think sustainable and think for the future, the main challenge in their investment portfolio construct is maybe for once to invest not in what is giving them the dollar today, but to invest more in the renewable energy, okay, infrastructures. We've seen lots of oil and gas companies do that, and maybe today they can put even higher objectives on themselves in this perspective. So this is my point of view. And the second question from Prasad Kamath. Would you differentiate between strategy implementation and strategy execution? Iman, would you like to answer that?
Yes, by all means. Actually, we have clarified this during the session. We said that strategy implementation, according to literatures, this is not my own definition. According to literatures, strategy implementation is equal to strategy design plus strategy execution plus strategy monitoring or controlling. So this is how we differentiate between strategy implementation and strategy execution.
Okay. So strategy implementation is the big umbrella, which includes both crafting and execution under it. Type. Question from Fernando Santiago. Is Kaplan's concept of strategy translation still used in current models? Eid, would you like to answer this?
To be honest, I'm not aware of exactly what is the Kaplan's concept of strategy is, or what it is, its content, so that I can relate to the strategy implementation.
Or Iman?
So Kaplan is, I think he's referring to Norton Kaplan, who developed the balance scorecard. So yes, it's still used big time. We are using it. There are so many organizations who are using the balance scorecard still.
Yeah, and I believe in the balance scorecard, you can integrate portfolio and operations easily. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. So, question from Ihab Barhumi. Is it wise for a highly ambitious organization to go through project, then program, then portfolio management, step by step, as implementation of its strategies to ensure strategic benefit realization through building the collective consciousness? Or can it go for strategy implementation professionals to help implement strategies? What a beautiful question. I wanted Antonio to answer this, but unfortunately he's not with us. Eid, you're gonna have to, or maybe we collaborate on the answer together. So Eid, would you like to give us your perspective on this?
As we said earlier, both are important. The strategy or the determination of what projects to be done requires the big umbrella or the big picture to be clear. So how can we set the direction or define a scope of one project if the big picture is not clear? Once we talk about strategy, we set up, as we said, the big picture, and then from that we define the initiatives that we would like to implement on the program level. Then we can break down these programs to the related units and assign them projects within specific scope or work streams so that they deliver, knowing what in the big picture are we trying to achieve. This is how it is structured, so that the big picture is important, as well as what is defined in every project.
And this actually mimics Kaplan's cascading, but in the project perspective sense. Iman, you'd like to add anything on this?
I think you covered it all.
Yeah. One thing, when he says step by step, I'd like here, whenever we want to do any type of organizational development, we have to be realistic and practical. Realistic and practical means understanding, and I believe, Eid, you mentioned the readiness factor in one of your answers, which is important. So to put objectives that we are not ready for would kill the organization, because people will not achieve, and it will make the morale go down, rather than putting things that are a little bit challenging, okay, a little bit more than what they, or same as what they can do, or maybe 1%, 2% more, so that they can enhance their capabilities and have the sense of achievement and have a good morale, and then they can fly after that. So readiness is important. In this perspective, understanding oneself, if we look at our capabilities and the type of business, if we don't know how to do proper project management or execution, what do? Outsource the execution. And this is what many organizations do. Okay, so they live by managing properly their strategy, implementation, their portfolio, their program, and they outsource all the execution to somebody else. This is a good model. Now, other organizations, what do we do if we have the muscles? We know how to manage projects properly, but we don't know the big picture. Maybe you can become a contractor for those that would outsource you. So it's about understanding your capabilities, your readiness, and crafting the right strategy for you that will help you grow. Okay. So
if you allow me, Doctor, adding this, you pointed a very important point. The strategy is not always that we need to break down projects and deliver them internally. Sometimes we don't have the technology or the competency of the people who are qualified to do it. That's why some companies not subcontract or contract other companies to do, but rather than acquiring other companies. Why Twitter acquire different companies? Because there are special capabilities that these companies have, so that they integrate, and they don't start from the beginning. They don't need to waste resources reinventing the wheel on some fields, rather than starting from an advanced stage. That's by acquiring other company, having their employees, having their skills, so that they can build up. So that it's not that we have a strategy, we have in every aspect of that strategy, there is a one-to-one project related to it, a one-to-one relationship.
Yeah. If they say, if you can't beat them, join them, or maybe buy them if you have enough money. Okay. A question from Muhammad Midani. Tell us about the PMO role in strategy implementation. Antonio, do you hear us? Antonio? Okay, so I'm going to go to Iman. What's the role of PMO in strategy implementation?
Just to put it in summary, strategy implementation could be one of the services that the PMO can deliver for the organization.
Okay, but not any PMO. It should be working at the strategic level, because
Exactly.
One of the problems why many PMOs fail, many of them don't know their role. Okay.
Exactly.
If their role is strategic, okay, they cannot do execution. If their role is corporate execution, contracting, okay, they don't. I don't believe in the office that does everything. Okay, it does not happen. It does not succeed. A vision realization office is not an office that can manage contractors, okay, or execution projects on sites. Each one has its own specialty, its own set of best practices and whatnot. So from Prasad Kama,
Dr. Sadi, on this point, for example, in the ministry, if we want to be a directive PMO, this means that the vision realization office will be thousands of employees, thousands, and will be very difficult to execute. That's why every deputyship have their own PMOs, which is directive, and we are more into direct between control and directive. We intervene, we support, we review performance, not a directive, but between the directive and control. Every organization has its own challenge, business complexity, and organizations should adopt the form of PMO that suits their needs.
Okay. We can talk a lot about PMOs, my favorite topic, but not now. we can maybe make a session.
Sadi,
Yes, Antonio.
Sadi, I'm back. Sorry, I had to.
We cannot hear you still, Antonio. We are waiting on the hopes that your connection is better. So,
problems. I like what was mentioned before. We talk about this.
Antonio, unfortunately, we can hear maybe 3 out of 10 words you say, and they are beautiful, but we cannot connect the dots. So we'll wait till you have a better connection. And I move to a question from Prasad Kamath. Would ecosystem engagement be a better term than stakeholder management? This is an Antonio question. Okay. Now Iman has to answer. Ecosystem engagement.
Ecosystem is the terminology that is, booming these days. It's very trendy, so everyone's using it. Ecosystem management probably could be a better terminology than stakeholder management. Ecosystem management.
Yeah, I love the ecosystem thing. I second that as well. Question from Fernando Santiago. Does it have to be projects or operations? Aren't projects transfer to operation the capability, new changes required to implement the strategy and achieve KPI targets? Let me answer. It is exactly that. Projects do provide the capabilities, do provide the facilities, do provide these, but they don't operate them. They don't run them. They go out to establish new entities, new utilities, new capabilities. So the people who are there to manage them, this is why we have to focus in terms of managing benefits. Our next topic, we're going to focus on this a lot. It's all about the marriage between operations and projects. They are not enemies. They are not rivals. They are not competitors. The organizations that are mature know how to actually integrate them and have proper synergy between them together. Now, Fazal Rabi, agile methodology is being adopted by increasing number of organizations. Do you foresee a major impact on the way portfolio management is run today? For example, lean portfolio management course run by SAFE does not even mention the word project. Okay. Who would like to answer this?
If I can add, I think it depends on the industry that this organization in. If we talk about the trends now in the tech companies, whether these in services like food in deliveries or transportation or telecom, more into the digital sphere, they tend to adopt agile because it's not clear. The industry is changing rapidly. They cannot have a strategy for 10 years. It will not be valid in 6 months. So that means they need to build on agile approach more than a company in the gas and oil and gas, which is longer strategy, let's say lifespan.
Well, actually, let me add زي ما يقولوا بالعربي أزيدك من الشعربات. in terms of the strategy implementation roadmap or body of knowledge, they speak about the nimble organization, or meaning agile is a mindset, being quick, being adaptive, being near the client, empowering front end people. All these concepts, we are instilling these in all of our projects, operations, organizations, even if we don't do IT or technology projects. Number one. Two, being adaptive is one of the basic concepts upon which portfolio management was built. So, and this is even before they start to speak about a lot of agile. Being adaptive is quite important. Actually, one of the questions they like to ask in exams in portfolio management: what is the most important thing a portfolio manager does? And the right question is not strategy alignment, it's not resource management, it's not blah, blah, blah. It is understanding which initiative to kill, okay? Because it's one of the hardest leadership decisions to let go of the things, not because the project or program manager are not good, but because the market changed, okay? And we will be investing in something of the past, and we have to adapt. So this is the concept of portfolio. Now, question from Kimberly Johnson: why the picture of two men when I put, okay, now these are called Farid and the other guy, Sam. Actually, we have men and women in our cartoons and we use all of them. It just happened that I used two men. Next time, maybe I use two women or a man and woman. No issue there. And Dr. Tanaka, yes, you've been GM, not CEO. Thank you for correcting this. Last question. And we ask our friend Raj to join us for the closing of the session. Question from Samir Jadid: how can we influence the culture of the organization to accelerate the process of implementing portfolio management and strategy implementation of culture? And this requires a session by its own. So if you like each to give me 1 minute, each of you, on the cultural thing to accelerate the success.
In very quickly, the culture is what people think or react within each other in the workplace. If the collaboration is the dominant factor, it's easier to build together a strategy or a scope of work. If there are competition, people tend to be selfish. There should be special programs to engage them, change their mindsets about how do they look at the work, how do they look at the value that they should be working together to achieve. It is more collaboration than cooperation if they reach this level, so that they can be clearly understand the value from their cooperation and collaboration than their selfish targets. The organization will be much more ready to implement a more successful strategy. It is about culture, yes, competency, people maturity, backgrounds, and selection. It starts also, didn't forget, selection from the beginning. Who to import to this team? If there is a huge team that we cannot have agreement on, we can select a task force that can lead the work, and other people will follow, that we expect will resist that change. So it depends on the tactic that can be adopted based on our assessment of what our people are, what is their background, and what is their, let's say, assumption about this work. Are they against it or are they supporting it?
Thank you very much. Excellent points. Iman,
Yeah, if I may add, it all starts with establishing awareness. I believe in one of the organizations that I have worked for, the way we have adopted for this is by establishing awareness first of all, by leveraging the ADKAR model for change management. So first of all, establishing awareness, then the desire to change. Why we are instilling the desire to change, actually, because they will be, if they contribute towards the strategy, they will be incentivized. So this is the desire, how you build the desire. Then by establishing knowledge, ADKAR, awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and then reinforcement. The change management model that we have adopted is the ADKAR. Basically, we have started with the awareness. I can hear echo, so I'm not concentrating. So I hope my answer was clear.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much. I really thank you. It has been really a pleasurable panel. Lots of very good points to think about later on. And again, made my challenge harder for next time. Okay, to start from where what you said today. I'd like to ask our friend Raj. Can you kindly thank you, Raj, for being with us the whole session, and thank you for having the patience. Please, my friends, stay with us because Raj will do the closing session now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sadi, Antonio, Iman, and Aid. Wonderful session. I have lots and lots of takeaways from this rich discussion. It was sad that we had a problem with Antonio's internet, and we missed out on some of the expert opinion of him on some of the questions. Nevertheless, excellent session. I have a few takeaways which I would like to share, and it will stay with me for a long time. Portfolio is permanent, programs are temporary. What a beautiful statement. Portfolio management is like a referee. It decides what is to be done and what is not to be done. I liked what you said, Dr. Sadi, what initiative to be killed. That's very tough, and it is really a sign of strong leadership, what you don't want to do. And that only comes with maturity. And also, we have heard along a lot of time, operation was successful, but patient died. That's what happens with many programs and projects, but not with portfolio. If you have portfolio management, I think it will assure no patient ever die. And then, what is strategy implementation? It's a realization of the dream. You have a dream, you need to realize it. And that you cannot do without a proper strategy implementation framework. And that's what Dr. Sadi, you shared with us. And what a cross-section between strategy implementation and portfolio management. Beautiful. I think there are so many in-depth, profound knowledge hidden in that chart. And then I like Antonio's iterate and adjust as you walk along the path of strategy implementation. I am reminded of the analogy of a flight path. You know, a plane leaves the origin to go to a destination. It has a flight plan. Flight path is charted out. But every pilot confirms 95% of the flying time, it is off the course. But because they have a flight path, they keep correcting, adjusting, and keep coming back to that flight path. And that flight path is what our strategy is. And how do we implement it? Using all the different portfolio, programs, project, ground management, safe takeoff, and the managing the weather, storm, birds, and finally reaching the destination. I like this analogy to capture the integration between strategy, program, project, portfolio, and not to forget the operation. Of project all the way to strategy is a career path. You graduate from project to program to portfolio and then to strategy. And this gives a huge benefit to all the professionals around the world that project management is not the end of the world. you need to continuously educate. And what I liked, Iman, you said beautifully that practice is the key. Without practice, these credentials, these certificates are just piece of paper. We need to get the hands dirty. So thank you very much for these valuable takeaways. And I'm sure our audience have taken a lot more takeaways from these rich session. Now, I would like to invite you guys to make realization of these benefits in a course which is coming up next month on 28 and 29 June. This will be given by Antonio and Dr. Sadi jointly, and it's about strategy implementation professional. And in fact, after this course, you can actually apply for the certification, and of course, during the course, everything will be explained. Also, I would like to invite you to next webinar. The next webinar, which is going to be on 15th June, as Dr. Sadi said, it is a extension of what we have done today. It will be furthermore digging deep into the details of managing benefits through the portfolio management. And then I would also like to remind you guys that this is the episode number 21. We have had before this 20 episodes with similar thought leaders and industry leaders in the last 2 years. Please go to our website gda.org.bh and you will see all those 20 webinar recordings, and you will get a huge benefit, wealth of knowledge. And also I would like to end this session by welcoming you to join GDA. Please come to our website, see for yourself what we are offering. We have 10 technical committees. We have a unique knowledge hub where every member can collaborate with other members. We have got courses, we have got seminars, and not to forget our biennial conference, which is now planned for the February 2023. And we are all working towards it. Actually, we are building up the tempo for that conference. So with that, once again, I thank you, Dr. Sadi, advisors, the team, your team, Mustafa, and whoever is behind the scene providing this benefit and this realization of his strategy. So thank you once again and wish you all the best. God bless.
Thank you very much, Raj. Yani, you put them in an excellent manner that we can take a snapshot, 3 minutes, and make it a video that summarizes everything we spoke about today. You did something perfect. Thank you very much. And we are very proud and happy to always collaborate and be part of GDA family because it's a place to share knowledge. That's it. Okay, and collaborate and network, very much like PMI and other similar organizations that we all collaborate with. So I'm looking forward next to see you all on June 15 in our next webinar, discussing portfolio management and managing benefits. So this is like the episode 2 of what we discussed today. Iman, thank you very much for sparing your time. Also Aid, also Antonio, Raj, and Imad, everybody, stay safe and looking forward to see you in about a month from today, on June 15.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you, Imad, for giving it a grand opening. Thank you, Imad. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good afternoon, Iman. How are you?
Hi, how are you, doctor? How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. Welcome back. Very happy that we are together here today. We're going to start in about 15 minutes. So we're going to go under the air and play some videos to entertain our coming participants while they register.
Sounds great.
Excellent. See you soon.
Inshallah.